All right, everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Sinful Show. Very interesting episode. I had Jerry Pauley from Hillbilly Horror Stories and Warning, You Will Be Offended podcast here, sharing some very interesting stories as we talked about supposedly haunted locations, paranormal activity, etc., etc., etc. So buckle in. This was a great episode.
I don't think anyone has the right to take the life when I'm under
What's going on, everyone? We're joined here tonight with Jerry Pauley. Hey, Jerry, how you doing?
Doing good, Raymond. Doing good.
That's awesome.
I'm sorry. Should I say Brother Sin or Father Sin, or how do you want to be addressed, sir?
You call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late for dinner. So, for the ones that's not familiar with Jerry, Jerry has two awesome podcasts, and the original one I actually went to go see a live show out in Indianapolis. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Jerry?
Well, my name's Jerry, and I am a semi-retired stand-up comedian that decided to start a podcast, and I started off with a gentleman friend of mine named Ricky Graninger. Eventually switched over to my wife. The name of the show was Hillbilly Horror Stories. And then, that's been going well for 3 years. We just hit our 5 millionth download on the show, and about a week and a half ago. And then just recently started a comedy podcast, the second one, with a young lady named Amanda DeGrasse out of the Massachusetts area. So it's a completely different take, because the Hillbilly Horror Stories is a family-friendly podcast, to where the other one, which is called Warning, You Will Be Offended, is exactly what you would think it would be. It's offensive humor, and it's also my first time recording with somebody on a regular basis that's not only not in the same room with me, but not even in the same state. So it's been a few challenges getting that worked out, but that's basically the nutshell on who I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there now. They do a lot of that remote recording, which is what you're doing with that second podcast. But Hillbilly Horror Stories is, let's see, you're from Kentucky, right?
Yeah, Lexington.
So you wear that title proudly then, Hillbilly?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And my wife, I'm actually from Louisville, so I'm not, that's the big city of Kentucky. Now Tracy, on the other hand, my wife and my co-host, she's from Dry Ridge, Kentucky. And when you got a name like that, you just know that's right in the middle of nowhere. And but Dry Ridge is actually, it's probably 45 minutes from Cincinnati. So I mean, it's not too far.
Oh, really?
From all the big cities. Yeah, it's on the northern Kentucky side. Matter of fact, most people will be familiar with, they built that giant arc in Williamstown, which is one exit up, and that's actually where her dad and her were from, was right there in Williamstown. And Dry Ridge, like I said, they're like neighboring little towns next to each other. So if anybody's familiar with where that big arc is, that they put up there about 2 or 3 years ago, that's actually where she's from. That's where Dry Ridge is.
Oh, okay. I was getting ready to ask if it was Hazard, Kentucky.
No, Hazard's probably about an hour from us, going down a little further southeast.
Yeah. So, well, that's awesome. So, yeah, I've actually got to meet Jerry and his wife. They're amazing. They appreciate the military and first responders and all those people. And you guys talk about that a lot on every episode of the Hillbilly Horror Stories. Pretty much What draws you to do that, Jerry?
And I don't remember, we didn't do that from the very beginning. We've been doing it for, I think, the better part of the last 2 years. We've been around for three. But I don't even remember exactly when we did it or why we started. But we've got that um, respect and admiration, and something happened, and it was something minor, I'm sure, to where we just decided to just start doing it. And the bottom line is, there's a lot of thankless jobs out there. They could be the military, which you put your job is putting your life on the line every day for everybody in this country. And we put the police in there in that same category. We put the fire department in that same category, and a whole bunch of other uh, people, doctors, nurses, all civil servants. These people, it's a thankless job. I mean, they bust their ass every single day, and they don't get the credit they deserve. So we just decided, you know what? We're going to let you know that we appreciate the hell out of you every single show. So that's what we do.
You can start counting mailman in there. I got silence on that, Jerry.
Oh, I didn't hear what you said. The phone cut out.
Oh, okay. I said you should start counting mailman in there.
Oh, well, we already had some people tell us that we had to start counting the canine units too, so we started adding those to it here about a month ago.
Really? So, well, canine units they're just the same thing as a first responder or a cop. They're considered police officers in my eyes. I mean,
Absolutely. So, I mean, it made sense, so we added them.
so that's just a subcategory. Now they're asking for subcategories.
Yeah, exactly.
No, because I pretty much, I bring that up because myself, I'm a veteran and I am a former police officer. And every time I hear that, it warms my heart every time I hear you and Tracy bring that up on your show. And I'm very grateful to hear that, man.
But it's like I said, it's the very least we could do. And so from me to you, thank you for your service.
Well, I appreciate that, Jerry. So, hillbilly horror stories. What what is it like? What's that about?
Well, it's about anything that's unexplained. So for the most part, it's paranormal stuff. That's where we kind of stick. We will occasionally throw an alien story in there just to appease our listeners who keep saying, "Why don't you do an alien show? Why don't you do an abduction show? Why don't you do?" But occasionally there's some stories out there like, we've not done Roswell just because it's been done to death, but we have done, some stories that I find interesting. So I'll do an occasional one. And then same thing with cryptids. I'm not huge on cryptid stories, but we do some because there are a lot of people who are into it. But for the most part, we just like to cover everything from true crime that might have like a Satan worshiper aspect or a cult situation or something like that. We like to have a creepy aspect to the story if it's going to be true crime related. But we will do that on occasion. So, but it's pretty much anything that's unexplained or anything creepy we'll throw in there.
Now on the unexplained stuff, I've noticed you guys have actually got to go out to some of these locations you guys have actually covered.
Oh yeah. That's a blast. We just had a situation this week where a live show we finished yesterday. We were in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, home of the Mothman, and we got to do a live show inside of a haunted American Legion's Hall. And they were in the process of doing Battle Day because the one of the first wars or battles of the American Revolutionary War was fought right there in Point Pleasant, and there's a lot of soldiers that are buried right there on the park that's literally on the same property where the American Legion Hall is. So it was pretty cool to be able to do that. We got to go to the Sally House in Atchison, Kansas back in August and spent the night there. Got to report back on some of that. We go to Waverly Hills every year. We went did a show inside the infamous Bobby Mackeys Music World in Wilder, Kentucky. So yeah, we get to go to quite a bit of these places and spend some time in there.
Now, with those places, and you've been there, a lot of those places are heavily covered by like ghost shows that are on actual TV and stuff like that. And I'm the type of person that is, I'm an open-minded skeptic. You know, I'm one of the people that I've got to see it to believe it. And I've been kind of dwelling and going out and exploring those places, just waiting for something to tap me on the shoulder and go, "Hey, I'm here. I'm here." Have
Right.
have you seen anything like at any of those places that would kind of make you think there's something out there like that?
Here's the funny thing, Raymond. If if you've heard people say, if you're out looking for love, you're not going to find it, but it'll hit you when you're least expected. That must be the way it is for me with the paranormal because I've had a bunch of experiences in my life, but they never seem to be at these places that are supposed to be the most haunted places in the world. So I know last year, or was it last year, 2 years ago, we went to the Talbot Tavern, which is a 1700 building built in the 1700s. It's a bar and a hotel. Jesse James stayed there. A bunch of former presidents had stayed there. Abraham Lincoln's been there, and this place is supposed to be as haunted gets. We've done a story on that place. We spent the night there, and I experienced nothing. Now, Tracy, my wife, swears up and down all this stuff happened. The room we had was two twin canopy beds. And so I was sleeping in one, she was sleeping on one. It was like the old Dick Van Dyke show. And
Yeah.
she swears something happened. Before you know it, I'm in the twin bed with her because she wouldn't allow me to sleep in the bed by myself because she was so scared. I saw nothing. You know, we went to Waverly. You can see shadow people there. At least that's what they tell us they are. And you can see something, but I don't know if it's your eyes playing tricks on you or if it really is shadow people. But everybody else has experiences up there, whether it be the suggestion of the mind, excuse me, or just your eyes playing tricks. Because when you're in Waverly, the whole place is dark. They don't even want you to have your phone's flashlights out. You're in the dark, except for what little moonlight you got shining through the place. So it very well could be just your eyes adjusting with the darkness. We go to the Sally House. We spent the night upstairs by ourselves, and I experienced nothing there. And there was all kinds of stuff going on. They were doing an investigation while we were there earlier in the night. There was people out with the dowsing rods and all kinds of stuff, and everybody swears they were getting something. I didn't get anything that I suspected, and then so I mean, it's just, and then we spent the night in Point Pleasant. I told you we spent the night at the Low Hotel, which is supposed to be a really haunted hotel. Same thing, absolutely nothing on my end. So I don't know, maybe it's just me, but when I'm at the haunted places, I see nothing. But if you throw me in just a regular surrounding, I'll seem like I'll find something all the time.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, tons of experience. I grew up in a haunted house, so.
Well, before I jump into that, I did now when you guys went to Waverly, was it a private thing or was it one of the group tour type things?
No, it was one of the group tours.
Okay. Because I did an episode, it was a while back, and I actually got to go down with a paranormal investigation team, and with the shadow people thing or whatever, however people want to phrase it or whatever, I kind of noticed people were saying they're seeing things, but I'm standing there with these people and I'm not seeing it. And what I've noticed when I was there was like, were they saying that was like prevalent, like on the 4th floor there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, it was on the 4th floor.
Okay. And what I noticed there at Waverly on that 4th floor, that they had that they had that open air area there, and the moonlight still comes in. It can still go into them hallways. There's a bunch of trees that will move with wind and stuff like that. And I'm just, because I always try to, I try to look at things with like a scientific approach of what could be making a movement or something like that. And so I don't know, because when we went there, we got the grand tour with like the owner and all that, and they're like, "Oh, we're not gonna say a whole lot and all that," but they go through and they tell you stories and go, "Well, this happened up here," and they continue. And I feel like they trying to like force things on you, but they deny that they're trying to force things on you. I don't know, Jerry, but
when I was up there, like I would see what other people were seeing. I just didn't know if they were shadow people or just the light and the dark mixture just kind of playing with you a little bit. So
right. So I don't know how to explain that, but I've seen like flashlights come off and on and stuff like that, and I don't know how to explain that, but I don't know if I want to say that's something from beyond or some kind of trickery or something like that, if you know what I mean.
Well, a skeptic will tell you, you've got the flashlights, they unscrew it just enough so the battery disconnects. So any movement at all can cause the battery to touch and turn on. So that's what a skeptic could tell you, because that is how they do it. It's not completely screwed together and it turns off and on. They usually do have it unscrewed a little bit to where there has to be a little bit of a connection made.
Right.
And if the true skeptic will say, well, yeah, it's just there's some kind of movement. Some kind of movement is making it turn on and off, but that doesn't explain why it would happen at a certain question being asked or something. So I mean, that's the thing about it. If you want to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, and that's what gets me is it's actually people are asking questions and the flashlights look like they're responding in that time of the questioning and stuff, and it kind of baffles me because I don't know how to explain it because I'm not like a rocket scientist or anything like that.
Well, you've totally misrepresented yourself. That's the only reason I agreed to come on, is I thought you were a rocket scientist.
I'm glad you think so highly of me, Jerry. I appreciate that. So, I mean, what kind of things did you guys get to do when you did the group tour? Did you guys do any EVPs or anything like that, or?
It depends on who your guide is. The first year we went out to Waverly a couple of years ago, we went on back-to-back group tours, about 25 in each one. So we went on one at I think like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and we went on one right afterwards at 10, which I don't advise anybody doing because there's a lot of steps and my feet were completely worn out. Plus I was wearing dress shoes. It wasn't the ideal situation. But anyways, the first tour guide we had was completely different than the second tour guide. So, and then on this past year we went on another one. We only went one this time, but that tour guide was a little more claimed to be a little more sensitive, and she did have some of the apps on her phone that would show you, or that would work basically like a spirit box. So it was a spirit box app, and she was doing like a little spirit box session up at room 502. So that was, so she did a little bit of stuff, but most of the time they don't have any type of EMF meters or anything like that. It's just strictly walking and talking.
Okay. Yeah, I've been kind of shown like a little bit of the ropes with this kind of stuff, and I'm continually asking all these questions. I'm like, well, something that's like an app on a phone or something, that's something someone programmed. I mean,
Yeah, I can't see. Now, I guess with the spirit box deal, I could kind of see a little more because it's just a transistor radio, and it's supposed to work in the way that a spirit can manipulate the words coming through to make it into something. So I could understand how that could still work. But these apps where it's like, oh, it shows you how many ghosts are in there. Okay, yeah, that's just stupid. That's not going to work. That's just somebody making you freak out for no reason whatsoever. But we
I
went,
yeah, I agree with that 100%, man.
we were on a ghost tour of Galveston, Texas, here back in May, and the tour guide was telling us about that. So everybody was downloading on their phone except me because I'm not that crazy. And everybody else was like, oh, look, it says right here at this house, look at how this, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Come on. So I don't know.
So, what about Bobby Mackey? That's a real close one to me as well, and I've heard a lot of people bring that one up.
Yeah, Bobby Mackeys is one of my favorites, without a doubt. And we lucked out because the people up at Gatekeeper Paranormal, uh, Angie and Laura who run Gatekeeper Paranormal, they are the paranormal team, the official paranormal team. So they give all of the tours and everything up there. Man, they are fantastic. They gave us run of the whole place. So when we did our show there, we did it on a Sunday, and there was nobody there except for the people at our live event. And they went ahead and gave us an hour tour of the place as well as telling us all the back history. It was really cool. But that place, man, there's been so much to go on as far as the mob used to own the place. The river, Licking River, is right behind it. So without a doubt, there was plenty of mob hits that probably got put in that river and taken out. There was a slaughterhouse there at one point in time on the property. There's the thing about Bobby Mackey's. I do think there's a lot of stuff there, and that is one of the places, a few paranormal places that I have experienced a little bit of stuff. Now I can tell you when we did our show there, which was in June, I believe, we had a listener get scratched on his back, and got some pictures and stuff of it. It's really cool. And this is a guy that um, I don't know really well, but I know him well enough to know that this is probably he's a bigger guy. I mean, he's not one of these guys that you would expect to be trying to get attention, like saying, "Hey, I got scratched on my back." It's
Right.
not, it's just not. He's a little more credible than that. And but we had a lot of people in that place, including my wife Tracy, that um, got extremely nauseous in one part of the place. And that's one of the things that happens there. Some people say it's because of the paranormal aspect. Some people say it's because it's built over top of a bunch of ley lines and a lot of magnetic activity there. The whole area is also limestone. So if you know a lot about paranormal, limestone is one of those deals that tends to soak in the energies and not let a lot of stuff go. Water's another one of those things, and it sits right dead on the river, and then you've got all the magnetic fields and everything that are around there. It's ripe for either paranormal activity or at least enough stuff to mess with your body where you would think that it would be.
Right. That's the one thing that gets me though is like I've actually seen someone. Well, I didn't see him get scratched, but I witnessed that happen in a place out in Winchester, Indiana. They call it the Paranormal Para 101. It's out. What's what it is? It's on 101. Oh, I can't. I think it's 101 Main Street in Winchester, Indiana, and it's like privately owned and all that. And it was like we went there after we went to Winchester, not Winchester, but Waverly, and I got to go with the same group. And my little brother, every time I've talked to him, he's been there like 3 times. he's been scratched. And we went there, and you know, I get the backstory, this, that, and another, and we're playing around in the dark in the basement of this building, and you're like, oh yeah, we're in the dark and whatever. And the guy from the paranormal group is moving me around and this, that, and another, and trying all this different stuff. And you hear my little brother go, I feel something burning. And I mean, he was like right in front of me, but it was so dark I couldn't see. But I walk up, and he had this big welt down the back of his neck. And I'm just like, you know, my brother doesn't have a reason to lie to me or anything like that. So it's just like, I don't know how to explain that. So that's pretty freaky.
Yeah, I would say so.
So you got to see that at Bobby Mackey's with a person that was there at your live show then.
Yep, that's exactly right. And it happened twice. The first one wasn't as noticeable as the second one.
So is that the most prevalent thing you've seen going to all these places?
Well, I would say yes and no. As far as something like that, yes, physical evidence, yes, that would be the most. But as far as like the unique thing, no, I told you we stayed at Sally House and we stayed upstairs and nothing happened. So I will tell you the story that what happened because the young lady, she's actually came out publicly and said it. So now it's no big deal for me to mention it. There's a young lady who runs a show, a podcast. Her name's Cammie Parker. And you maybe even met Cammie at the Indianapolis show because I believe she was there.
Yeah, I've met Cammie.
So Cammie was there were 6 of us who spent the night in the Sally House. It was myself and my wife Tracy, Justin Rimmel from Mysterious Circumstances, Cammie Parker, and then we had my daughter Kristen was there, and then we had Maria Miller, who is the director of tourism for Atchison, Kansas, which set all of this up for us. So 6 of us in there. We go to bed, myself and Tracy. We go up to one of the rooms, the middle room, which was haunted, but all the rooms up there are haunted. But you've got 3 rooms upstairs. You've got the nursery. You've got a room where with the nursery is the one where all these fires started starting in them by themselves. If you go back and learn anything about the Sally House, that's supposed to be like.
You said fires starting on themselves.
Yeah, they. The story behind the Sally House was there was a couple, the Pikmin family, who lived there in the 80s, and they were famous. There was a TV show called Sightings at the time, which was one of the few ghost hunter type shows that were out. Where it wasn't ghost hunter type shows; it was more of a show that just talked about the paranormal and incidents. And in that house, they felt like there was a demon, and they actually took their camera crews out there. And Mr. Pikmin, his first name's escaping me. He got scratched on camera, you literally saw the scratch develop in front of the camera crew. You can go back and look up YouTube, look up Sighting Sally House, and see some of the stuff from back then. But their nursery, where this took place at, there would be fires that would just start, and there would be neighbors telling them that the lights are on all hours of the night. How do you have a newborn baby and keep the lights on? And they'd be like, well, we don't have the lights on. But they would go back up there and the lights would be on when there was the way for it to happen. There were situations one time where they were downstairs and they came upstairs and there was a circle of stuffed animals. They were all put back to back to back, but made a circle. And they picked the toys up, went back downstairs, come back up, and they're all, these toys are back in the circle again. So there was all kinds of crazy stuff that happened in this nursery, but there were 2 other bedrooms upstairs. One was their room, and the other one was just an empty room. But we stayed in the middle room. So we had the nursery to our right. We couldn't sleep in any of the beds. All these places have beds in them, but we couldn't sleep in this one. In our room, There was a twin bed. They told us we couldn't do that. So we brought an air mattress. So we're laying there in the air mattress. There's a bathroom right on the other side. We're up against the wall, okay? So if we roll over, we're going to hit the wall. That wall went to the bathroom, and on the other side of the bathroom was the nursery. So we're up there in this room. We're asleep. Everybody else is downstairs. It's 1:30 in the morning when we turn in. Well, about 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm speculating on the time because I didn't have my, watch and everything on. So I'm in the bed. I've taken off all my clothes except for my underwear, basically, because that's how I sleep. And we were the only ones sleeping upstairs. Not a big deal. All the lights are off. The only lights we got coming in is from the window because there's no curtains or anything up in the house. But it's pretty dark upstairs. Now I've got the bathroom light on, so we do have some light trickling in, okay? And we're asleep. Somebody comes upstairs to use the bathroom, which is odd to begin with because there's a bathroom downstairs. So I hear them come in. I hear them use the bathroom because they didn't shut the door. And then they turn the light off. And I'm like, great, now we don't have any lights up here at all. But then I hear the floors creak as if somebody's walking in our room. Now, I'm turned over, laying on my side, pretty much looking at a window where I could see a little bit of moonlight coming in. Well, this person, keep in mind, there are 3 other girls in the house and Justin Rimmel. This person walks in, stands in front of the window. So now I can see because she bends down and I can see long hair. So I'm like, okay, it's one of the girls. Now I know I roll out Justin. And she completely undresses. Completely undresses. Now, I can't tell who it is because there's not enough light. I can just tell that it's a girl with long hair, and all 3 girls had long hair. So I'm like, okay, this is odd because one of these girls could be my daughter. That makes it very odd.
Well, it's very weird.
And the other 2 had to be Cammie or Maria, who was the director of tourism. So she goes in, gets completely undressed. She climbs into the bed that we're not supposed to sleep on. And I've got my shorts, I've got my phone, Tracy's glasses are all sitting on top of this bed, which was right next to our air mattress. She goes down, knocks all that stuff off, like with waves, brushes her arm across like she sees it, and I'm going to knock this stuff in the floor. So she brushes and knocks it off. She gets back into bed, she covers up, goes to bed. And I'm like, okay, I can't wait for it to be daylight so I can see who's next to us. And about 6 o'clock in the morning comes, 6:30, sun starts coming through. She's still turned in a way where I can't tell who it is. And eventually she turns and it looks, and it's Cammie. She raises up on her elbow. She's staring right at me. We're literally 2 feet apart, 3 feet apart from each other. She's looking at me, confused as hell. I'm looking at her like, hey. And you can tell in her head, she's like, how in the hell did I get here? And why am I in this room? So now a few seconds later, she figures out she has no clothes on. Now she's covered up. I can't see anything. But she figures out I've got no clothes on, and she looks stunned. I see her roll over and look on the side of the bed, to which she looked back at me, and I pointed to the bottom of the bed because now she knows I must have seen her undressed because I know where her clothes are at. So I did the gentlemanly thing. I turned around into bed so she could do what she needs to do. And she gets up, wraps the blanket around her, gets up. She grabs the clothes. She goes to the bathroom. She gets dressed. She comes back, starts making the bed, and she tells me, oh, my God, I have no clue how I got here. So we talk about, was you guys drinking then? No, I had 1 glass of wine the entire night, not drinking. And trust me, Cammie can drink with the best of them. So 1
Oh, I know. I'm at her.
glass of wine is doing nothing. So then it was like, well, I mean, do you sleepwalk? She says, no, I've never sleptwalked that I know of. Plus, she lives in a 1-story house. So she never has to go upstairs instinctively to use the bathroom or anything. She'd use the bathroom downstairs all night long. There was no reason to come upstairs for her to use it. So we were completely baffled as to what the hell happened. And we start telling Maria later at the show that, hey, this happened. And she said, you know what's funny is the last 2 or 3 people that have had nightly stays in that house have all talked about being in a trance. So we think that's kind of what happened. So, I mean, it wasn't malevolent by any means, but we kind of think that maybe something took control of Cammy that night, and she ended up upstairs, and she has no clue how or why. So
That's insane. Because
it is.
I mean, you covered like all the bases there. I was getting ready to ask you took some of that Kentucky White Lightning up there or something.
Yeah, yeah, nothing of that.
Really?
Very strange.
Man, that's wow. Wow. But you said you'd be like, I mean, like besides that and, you know, the stuff at Waverly, you said you've, I mean, that's kind of crazy. And seeing the scratches at Bobby Mackey, I said, but you said you've seen stuff in like real life outside of places that weren't like known super hot spots for paranormal that
Right.
you've experienced.
Yeah, when I was 13 years old, I moved. My family moved into a different house, and it was without a doubt haunted. But I don't think it started off that way. And this is what's weird. So we've been in the house a short time, so that's what makes it hard to decipher. We'd only been in the house a couple of months, and my grandfather passed away. He was actually my great grandfather. He was my mom's grandfather, and they were extremely close. She was pretty much raised by him and my great grandma. And when he died, it completely changed her. She became super depressed, and I mean this lasted for the duration of her life. And but she became super depressed. She got to where she was watching these prayer line TV shows like the 700 Club, PTL, and all that. And one night, we're sitting in the living room. Now, I got to explain to you a little bit of how our living room was set up. Now, we've got a console TV. This is back in the 80s. We've got a console TV. We've got a couch and a chair that are sitting next to each other. So the couch is going long ways on the longer part of the living room on the wall, and then the chair is at the very end of the living room right next to the couch. So picture that. On the television set, we had it was like a little chair that was made out of fabric, and it was made for sewing equipment. So it was made out of cloth. You would put like your little needles and stuff would just stick to the top. It was like a pin cushion, and inside of it, it would lift up. The seat of the chair would lift up, and you could put uh, spools of thread and stuff like that in it. So this thing wasn't much bigger than the palm of your hand, okay, size wise. But it sat on top of this television, and we just got there doing some work to the outside of the house. So we had our metal numbers that went to the house sitting, and there was three of them, an eight and two ones, sitting on top of this chair and a bottle of Elmer's glue. This is how well I remember this. Keep in mind, I'm 51 now. This was when I was 13. So all this stuff is sitting on this little chair. She's on the prayer line talking to whoever, PTL, 700 Club, one of them. This chair with these metal numbers and this glue pops up into the air, probably about a foot and a half, and just hits on the floor and scatters. Everything just scatters out of it. We just looked at each other as if to say, did I just see what I thought I saw? And she tells them, hey, I have to go. That was the first thing that ever happened in that house. And like I said, it was only a couple of months after we'd moved in, and recently after he passed away. So we weren't there long enough to know if there was nothing there before or if this was all related somehow, some way. So a couple of nights later, I'm in my bed asleep. I'm in the back room, and she comes and wakes me up. My mother. She says, "I'm hearing something upstairs in the attic. Can you come in the living room and sit with me?" I came in and sat with her for probably 15, 20 minutes. Didn't hear a thing. Nothing. My mom was not one, by the way. My mom was always a person that could see stuff. She was very sensitive. I remember having friends come over in high school. A friend of mine, specifically a guy named Cleo, came over and he was looking for something and couldn't find it. And my mom said, "Go home in your house," where she had never been, by the way. Go home at your house. You have a closet that's in your living room area. There is a top shelf, and it's up there on that top shelf. And he goes home and checks, and that's where it was. So, and I don't even remember what the item was, but I mean, that was my mom. She could do stuff like that on occasion, not all the time, but she could do stuff. So she was not freaked out very easily, which, she was this night, obviously. So the next night, same thing. She comes, wakes me up. She hears something upstairs in the attic. Well, I go in there and sit, and wouldn't in there no time, and I started hearing the same things. Could it? Most people will say, "Well, it could have been a rat or something like that." Well, this wasn't that kind of sound. This was literally like, have you ever had like a real heavy piece of furniture on a wooden floor or concrete? Maybe it's like a wooden dresser or something, and you scoot it, and it not only makes a scooting sound, but also makes like a little bit of a squealing sound. You know what I'm talking about? A screech
Yeah.
from moving it. Well, that's what this sound was. Keep in mind, our attic just had the rafters and a little bit of insulation up there. It didn't have plywood laid out so you could really there was a bunch of stuff sitting up there, but it was stuff that would sit across the rafters, but there was really no room or no way to move stuff or scoot stuff around. But that's what it sounded like was going on up there. But as the years went on, you would start hearing voices talking or whispering, I guess would be the better term, through the ductwork of the furnaces. And it would get to a point where it would freak you out and scare you because you would hear two or three different voices, some male, some female, but you could never make out what they were saying. Strictly whispers. And so much to the point that when I got older, all this activity took place from about the time I was 13 to 19, 20 years old. And I would get to the point where I went out and bought a stereo system to keep right beside my bed. Literally, I rode over, it was arm's distance to be able to just turn it on and off from my bed because I used it to drown out these noises. We would hear a baby cry. Nobody in the house had a baby, but we would hear a baby cry all the time. Just little things like that for the most part, we couldn't figure out what the problem was. Now, the University of Louisville had some psychics or paranormal investigators or whatever that we called, and they sent some people out. They went in one room. They did like a little, I'm not going to say a seance. They lit some candles. They talked. They sprinkled some stuff. I really don't know. I've not really seen too much of stuff like this done outside of like a magic type deal. And they basically said that back in the pioneer days, there was a man and woman. She was pregnant out of wedlock. The father got mad and killed all three of them, and they were all buried there on a property. That was their reason for the baby crying. Blah 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 blah. Bunch of stuff like that. But I would have incidents like that. I remember the way our house was shaped, Ray. The every room had a door that led to another room and made a complete circle. So it wasn't like a house that had a hallway with rooms on both sides. It literally was you opened one door and you were every time, and each room had two doors, and one led to the next. Well, my room and my sister's room adjoined each other, and one day doors stayed open most of the time. We never shut the doors. I walked through one day from my room to hers. There was a toy box sitting there, and there was 2 or 3 toys just laying out right at my doorway. I pick them up, I put them in the toy box. I went outside. Everybody was in the pool that we had, and I was out there talking to them. Come back in 10 minutes later, there's still been nobody in the house. But those toys that I just put back in the toy box are now back out in the exact same spot where they were in front of my door and the floor. That was the last day I ever used that door. I shut that door and I put a console TV in front of it, and I never used that door again.
Jesus.
just because of that incident. And we had another incident. The other door from my room led to a little spare room, and we would hook. This was back in the days of Atari, and this is when the Atari 2600s basically just first came out, and we had a little TV set up there, and we used it like a little game room. So one night, it was myself and my 2 sisters. Both of them were younger than me, one by a year, the other one by about 3 years. And we're sitting in that room and we're playing Atari. Well, there was just enough light on the wall behind the TV to where it looked like a side profile view of like the devil and the horns, the stereotypical what you would think of. The little beard, everything. And we're like, where in the world's this shadow coming from? So we're trying to figure out how to recreate the shadow on the wall. Nothing we move, nothing we do is fixing that shadow. So we're concerned. Well, then all of a sudden, whatever made the shadow turned. So picture if you was looking at me from the side, and I just turned slowly and looked at you straight ahead. That's what this shadow did. It turned and like it turned to look at us, and it all of a sudden now had the 2 horns, one on each side, and the pointy ears. It was just a shadow, but that's what we saw, and we all 3 tried to get up and run out of the room so fast it looked like something out of a Three Stooges movie. We were bumping into each other trying to get through one doorway. There was linoleum in that room the little kitchen area that was our laundry room was the room that was next to that. So we're all trying to run this laundry room. It's got a linoleum floor and one of these little cheap little throw rugs in there that didn't have a rubber backing. My sister hits it. It slid out from underneath her. She falls. I mean, we laugh about it today. But, I mean, those are the kind of things that happen in that house on a regular basis.
That's man. Wow. So that man, now I'm like totally into like a lot of the stories you tell. It's just like, well, now I see why Jerry's doing this kind of stuff. It's that's insane, man.
Yeah, that was like I said, about 5 years of my life right there.
Yeah, because I've been looking, I've been searching, and it's kind of hard because I've never seen anything or heard, well, the one thing I'll say is I've heard scratching on walls, which I can't explain, and seen my brother get scratched like that, and it's just, but to actually go through that and see a shadow, and you're saying that would have been like detailed. It looked like something was right there making that, and you guys couldn't replicate that.
No, and it was a small room. I mean, and there wasn't that much stuff in the room. It was basically a couch, us, and a TV.
Man. So, I mean, after that, did you ever experience anything after that, or when did that stop?
Oh, yeah. Well, it stopped for some reason by the time that I was 18, 19 years old, somewhere in that range. It just kind of everything stopped. No rhyme or reason. But some of this, I think my mom might have been tied to a lot of this. And I told you that she could sense things and do things. And all of this, I want to say if you're familiar with like a lot of poltergeist situations, it's usually like an adolescent that's going through puberty. It's usually female, and a lot of the poltergeist activity may be created subconsciously by that person's projecting their energy
Right.
somehow, some way. And with this being looking back over the years, with this being an incident that traumatized my mom so much with the death of her grandfather, maybe somehow she was creating all this and it really wasn't a ghost. I don't know. I know there were other things that happened that I think she was behind. For example, I was I was at a friend of mine's house, little mobile home, and we're in there talking, playing games. It was me and a friend of mine, and we're visiting this young lady, and we hear this crash in her house. Well, she had a bottle of laundry detergent that had fell off of a shelf onto the washing machine. So you can imagine what kind of noise that made.
That'd be
You know, 2 feet above, the full bottle of detergent just crashes onto the top of a washer. We run in there and look, and she's like, I have no idea how that would have fell off. The washer wasn't running. There was no vibrations. They don't live by trains. None of that. And I immediately told my buddy Tim that I was with, I was like, I need to go home. This is pre-cell phone days. We're probably 86, 87, 1986, 87. I'm like, I need to go home. And I lived 5 minutes away. We get in the car, we drive home. And my mom was like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I've been trying to get a hold of you. Your uncle came here. He got into an argument with this guy, and the guy sucker punched him. And he came over here wanting to get a gun from your dad, and your dad wouldn't take the gun, but he went out there with your uncle to try to see what was going on. And I just really needed you home." Well, I mean, how odd is that thing crashed? I knew something was wrong based on that. Felt the need to come home, and there you go. My mom was trying to get a hold of me. Now, I didn't think for a second at that time, like I do now, that I think that was her projecting somehow, some way to get a hold of me, and she was able to make a connection. We've had other incidents like that. I tell this story all the time that my mom passed away 13 years ago, and my mom used to call me on my birthday. She would always call me the exact time I was born, which was like 4:30 in the afternoon, and on my birthday. And she passed away. And the first birthday I had, she passed away in December. My birthday's in August, so we're looking at 8 months later. I got a buddy of mine that wanted me to meet him at the Myers in Louisville up on Preston Highway to give him some software. So I meet him up there, and I'm on the phone with somebody. Now I live right around the corner from there, and my dad's house was about 15 minutes away. Wasn't too far away, but it's a completely opposite direction. So I am leaving this place. I'm on the phone. Somehow or another, I instinctively rode to my dad's house, and I'm in the driveway now, and I get off the phone, and I'm like, "What the hell am I doing here?" I had no intentions on coming here. And then all of a sudden, I just get this weird feeling as I'm sitting in his driveway that something's wrong with my dad. I go in. Now, keep in mind, I also had a girlfriend at the time who was very, very sensitive. And she couldn't, we actually could finish each other's sentences and stuff. It was so scary, the connection we had with each other. And she never got a chance to meet my mom. And she told me she couldn't go out with me on my birthday because she had something else going on. I think she promised her daughter something. I can't remember the exact detail. So we weren't going to be seeing each other this day. I'm at my dad's house. I call her up. I said, "Look, something weird's going on. I'm not sure. I feel like maybe something's wrong with my dad. Can't put a finger on it. I just had this feeling." She said, "I know. I'm on my way over." Now, keep in mind, we weren't even going to see each other. She was already on her way from my dad's house. So I go in. I'm talking to my dad and everything. Everything seems to be normal. She meets me. We're in the house. We're talking. Everything's fine, I guess. We leave. I get home. I'm talking to her on the computer, my girlfriend. I'm like, I don't know. I just felt like something was odd. I mean, something was bad going to happen, and I get those feelings every once in a while, Ray. I can kind of tell you sometimes I'll get a feeling and something bad almost inevitably happens. So I've always had that's been my little ability. I've had two different. When my grandpa died, that I just told you about, my great grandpa, I actually knew that he died before he died. I told my mom he had passed away, and we got a call about 15 minutes later telling us he had passed away. So that's, and like I said, it's just something. And then same thing with a great uncle who passed away, that he drowned. I woke up and told him that something had happened to him, and we got a call 2 days later saying he had drowned. So anyway, so long and short of it is, we're sitting here talking about, you know, how I felt that was happening. I told her, I said, I said, I wish you had met my mom. And she said, I think I met your mom tonight. And I said, really? She said, when we were sitting at the house, did you notice? They had a little toy poodle. My dad did, and my mom had. And my dad loved this little dog still. And she said, did you notice how the dog keeps looking up when she's sitting in with your dad's recliner in his lap? And I said, yeah. She said, when that dog's looking up, she's looking at your mom. Your mom is like behind your dad all the time. And I said, wow, I was kind of like overcome with emotion. And I said, oh, well, but why did I feel like something was wrong? And she said, I don't think there was anything wrong. She said, today's your birthday. And she said, did your mom call you at your birth time on your birthday? And I said, yes. She said, what time was that? And I said, about 4:30. She said, what time did you end up in the driveway? And I hadn't even thought about it. It was about 4:30. So I think that was my mom contacting me the same time she usually would have, even though that she was no longer alive.
Man, that's pretty heavy.
So I got one more that's even heavier if you want to hear it.
I'm more than happy to listen, man. I mean, this is. I wasn't expecting this. This is like I'm hooked now, Jerry. You got to tell me, man.
Well, I told the story on Jim Harold's campfire, and he said at the time on air that it was his favorite story that he had ever heard in his 5 years of doing this. So I don't know if it's still his favorite, but this guy listens to nothing but ghost stories every week for the last 5 years. So it's pretty cool compliment. So I'm doing comedy. I'm a professional stand-up comedian. I was really just getting started. My mom had seen me perform once. You got to realize going into this, Ray, that me and my mom did not have a good relationship when she died. Unfortunately, it was to the point where we just didn't see eye to eye. She was only 54 years old. I was in my 30s. Um, it was just, I had bigger aspirations. I had bigger plans for my future. My mom was one of these people that was like, you can't do that. You got to go work in a factory for 40 years and retire and get the gold watch and get the retirement. And that's how you struggle. That's just the way it was. My family grew up extremely poor. And I just felt like that there was bigger, better things out there, and I could do that. And so we just didn't see eye to eye, and it would cause a lot of arguments. And she always thought by me thinking that way, I was putting her and my dad down. That was definitely not the case. I just wanted more, and that didn't mean that I was putting down how I was raised or any of that, but it caused a difference in opinion. And sometimes she would call me, and I would see the phone number, and I just wouldn't answer the phone. And of course, in later years, I definitely regretted that. And so my mom passed away, 54 years old. She was in the hospital. And I tell you about these little feelings. I had a comedy show that I was doing. It was a sold out show. I was on my way there. I get a call saying my mom been rushed to the hospital, that they think she had a stroke. My mom had been in the hospital, I don't know how many times. She was somewhat of a hypochondriac. So I rarely went to the hospital when she was in the hospital because it didn't amount to anything. So I was used to getting these phone calls, if that makes sense. So, and I didn't pay it any attention, which sounds bad, but you just had to realize it happened so much. It was almost like a little boy cried wolf. So when we're on our way to this show, I get the call saying this. I get this feeling deep down inside that this is not the norm. This is not what's been happening. I literally feel like crap. I'm like, oh my God, we need to be there. My dad's like, just go do what you got to do. I'll keep you completely up to date. So I'm calling, I'm checking in every chance I can up there before I go on. And yeah, my dad says, you know what? They're telling us go on home. It's not a stroke. She's fine. She's up. She's talking all this. Go on home and don't worry about it. We're all going home now. I get a call at 7 a.m. You need to get to the hospital now. I get to the hospital. They said that there was nothing they could do. She could go at any time. And about an hour later, she passed away. I was at the bedside holding her hand when she took her last breath. So we're going to fast forward now about 8 months. We're going to say 9 months because I told you this other story uh, was back in August. And so now we're around that same time. It's actually a little later. It's, August, September wise. And I'm getting ready to do a comedy show at a little hole in the wall bar. I mean, it's as redneck as it gets. It's 2 rooms, a little small room where they do karaoke and the bar room itself. I've got a show that night. It's probably 5 o'clock. Shows at like 9. I'm there way early, but I'm just killing time. And I didn't realize at the time that my mom, my dad, and myself went out and played pool on occasion. I'm talking once every 4 or 5 years. This bar was the last place we went and played pool, and it had been a couple of years before that. But it's the last place we ever went to play pool, and none of this registered until years later. So I'm in this little bar. I'm going over my notes of my comedy act. I'm just kind of rehearsing it in my head. There's about 2 people in the bar besides myself, and this couple comes in. Now, they're a biker couple, probably late 40s. He's got the beard and everything, stereotypical biker, you would think. Little heavy set. He looks like you do, Raymond. He's got the long beard. He's got the tattoos. He's got that look, right? Big burly guy. Then she's the same way. I mean, she doesn't have the beard, but she's, she's she looks a little older. She's got the tattoo. They got the leather, the chaps, all that on. They come in. We strike up a conversation, and they find out I'm a comedian. They weren't there for the show. They were just there for the bar. And they're telling me the jokes and stuff like that. Once they found out I was a comedian, that's what everybody does. And I said, "Are y'all going to stay for the show?" And they're like, "We didn't know there was a show." I'm like, "Oh yeah, there's a show here." And told them about it. And it was still like an hour and a half away. So they said, "Oh well, we'll see what we can do." And so they don't know me. I don't know them. They know nothing about me. I go down in the other room. It's like a 2-step down sunken room where they do the karaoke and stuff at. I go in there and I'm sitting at a table with my notepad. I'm just covering my notes. Well, they came in and sat down at the table. Not my table. They sat at a different table. But I felt obligated because I'm like, they're in here sitting down. I probably need to go talk to them. You know how I mean? It was kind of awkward. I'm across the room and they're sitting in there. So I felt I needed to go talk to them. I walk over, I sit down beside them. We start making small talk, nothing major. Somewhere in the midst of the small talk, the gentleman says, Hey, your mom just wants you to know everything's all right. Well, I hear this and I'm thinking, okay, my mom's been dead for about 8 months, 6 or 8 months at this point, and they don't know this. He's made some kind of joke that I don't get, but I'm going to laugh at it. I did a little nervous laugh that you do, and he's like, no, seriously, your mom wants you to know that everything's okay. I felt like a ton of bricks hit me. We're the only three in this room. They don't know anything about my mom passing away, but yet he made it a point to make sure I knew this was the message that I'm supposed to have. She reached over and put her hand on top of my hand and just said, I know things weren't where you wanted them to be, but she really does want you to know that things are fine. Well, I broke down. I mean, I didn't just start bawling, but I mean, I know tears were in my eyes. And I just started telling these people, complete strangers, that, yeah, we didn't have the best relationship. And I mean, I just feel so guilty now about all the times I didn't answer the phone, the times that I didn't go visit when I could have, the times when I didn't believe this, and the times I didn't believe that. And and I said, I just feel so bad. And then they went on to say, well, she just feels like you should be doing so much better than like places like this, which was so my mom. That was my mom. I always should have been doing, and I just like, man. And to be honest with you, Ray, I don't remember much more of the conversation because after that, I literally was, I don't know, man. It was just everything hit me to like, I've always known there was a hereafter. I've always believed in ghosts, but this was proof. This was proof to me that my mother somehow, some way, sent these two people to give me a message, and I have no clue why they were picked. I don't know if they know why they were picked. After that conversation, they got up and left. I've never seen them again in my life. And it's the weirdest thing I've ever experienced, but it was the most life changing thing I've ever experienced because I know now that there's life after death. I don't know to what extent, but I know that this life isn't all. And I think that's what I was meant to see that day. That's what I was meant to hear. And I was able to make peace. And not a lot of people get to do that. But I made peace with my mom that day just because she sent some complete strangers to tell me that everything was okay and do it in a way where I knew it came from her. So,
Yeah,
how about that story?
yeah, well, that's, I'm lost for words with that, to be honest, Jerry. That's, you look at a lot of things that go on in the world. My parents are still around right now, but that reminded me a lot of my grandmother. And it's just like, the most I have is like dreams of her or anything like that, but it's not like strangers coming up and saying something like that. That would, I want to know what to think about that, man. That's, wow.
I can't tell you how many times I've relived that situation. Like I said, the playing pool there and everything, that was not a bar we frequented. We stopped in there on a whim one day. Only time we were ever in there, and I never thought about it till years later that that was the last place we were all together. So it almost makes sense that she showed up there. There was a tie-in that I never realized. Like I said, I say years later, I'm talking maybe the last couple of years is when I thought about that. It's been 10 years after the fact. So, but I've relived that day, trying to think about, okay, well, I talked to these people for 20 minutes before that. Why did they not say anything then? Did they come there with the intention to tell me this? Or did they just happen to stop in there and my mom took hold of them while they were there? Did they not have a clue? Or did they know that's what they were? I have no clue and no way to ask them.
That's the thing with this, man. I mean, there's no explanation for any of this, and from when I've met you and the times I've talked to you here and there, you're not the type of person to be like pulling my leg or anything like that. And I'm just like, holy shit.
No, I mean, I run a $5 million company by day. I'm a regional manager for a company. I mean, I'm very well entrusted and respected at what I do. So, I would never say something that would make me sound like a crackpot unless I 100% believed in what I was saying. And I have no problem telling anybody that story, especially if they're struggling with the loss of a loved one, because I think they need to hear that story.
Well, I'm glad you shared it with me. I mean, that's something I struggle with, back and forth, and it's not a religious aspect or anything like that, but you got to think there's a lot of people that struggle with stuff like that on an everyday basis, and I feel that can break a person down because that's something they constantly think about and worry about, and and just instead of trying to enjoy their life and just go with the flow, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's I'm still lost for words. That's heavy, man. That's I'm so I don't get lost for words often, and it's just holy shit, Jerry.
Well, I've told that story, I bet, 50 times, and I well up every time I tell it. It's the most emotional thing that's ever happened in my lifetime.
I bet, man. Having two strangers come up and say that, and I mean, I had like the hair on my arm standing up from that. I mean, I always worry about the times. I don't get to see my parents as much as I'd like to. I mean, they're right down the road, and thankfully, I went and got to see them today. And man, whew, you got me
How about
lost
that
for
for
words,
bringing
man.
the show to a complete halt?
Yeah, it did. I mean, that's a podcast worst nightmare to silence, man. And you got my mind going all over the place right now, and it's just that's a lot to take in, a lot to take in. So, man, Jerry, I really appreciate you sharing that with me. I can't. I don't have anything to follow up with that on.
Well, I guess we'll just have to call it a night, won't we?
Why don't you go ahead and plug your stuff real quick, man?
Yeah, Hillbilly Horror Stories, anywhere you get podcasts, you'll find that one. And give us a listen. It's 168 episodes, I think, is what we're up to right now. So it's a weekly. It comes out every Sunday. But that's it. We got most of them are up on YouTube. If you like to, no real videos. It's just a screenshot with them up there. But you can find it on YouTube. But pretty much anywhere you find podcasts, that's it. And then my other podcast, which is, like I said, completely different offensive humor, is called Warning You Will Be Offended. There's still some platforms that it's not up on yet. iHeart is still running behind on it, Google, but it's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, so you'll get it most places. Give that one a listen if you just want to laugh.
Yeah, you got you're also on Twitter, Instagram.
Oh yeah. Google Hillbilly Horror Stories. You'll find all of our stuff. It's Hillbilly Pod on Twitter. It's Hillbilly Horror Stories, the group. Which let me plug that real quick, Raymond. Our group, Hillbilly Horror Stories group. Even if you don't listen to the show, if you're struggling with depression or if you just got some stuff in life that life hands you a raw deal every once in a while, maybe you had a kid that was in a car wreck. Somebody posted about that earlier today, or you've had somebody sick in your family and you need some prayers. We've turned we got a Facebook page which is all about the show and all about paranormal stuff, but our Facebook group is a mixture of just funny memes. People talk about the paranormal, but more or less just a huge group of about 4,500 people that help each other out in their time of need. So if you're struggling with depression or something like that, and you want to just go on there and talk about it, it's a closed group. It's just somebody is willing to talk to you at all point in times on there. And if you post that you got a situation going on right now, no matter what it is, you're going to have 30 or 40 people telling you it's all right, and you can lean on them if you need to within a matter of about 15 minutes on there. So it really is a giant support group, and that's the thing that we're most proud of with the podcast is that group.
Yeah, that's a really big thing considering with how a lot of things on social media is totally negative nowadays. That's a really big thing to have that out there, Jerry.
Yeah, and we don't have any negative. There's a lot of groups out there where there's a bunch of drama. We have zero drama. Everybody loves everybody. Think about it like it being a big hippie fest, because that's basically what it is. When you got 4,500 people that all give a shit about you, that's saying something. So you literally can post whatever you want in that group without being judged, and it's a judge-free zone, and it really is great, and it's the biggest accomplishment that we've made with the podcast.
That's awesome. See, guys, there's actually positivity out there in social media. You just got to know where to find it.
Yep, got to know where to find it.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show, Jerry.
I appreciate it. We've had you on some of our Patreon stuff, and eventually I need to get you on one of the regular episodes. So I appreciate you, Raymond.
Yeah, you got a Halloween episode coming up too.
Yep, the Halloween episode last year got almost 50,000 listens, but we just have, I think it was over 3 hours long. We had about 15 different podcasts, all doing like 10 minutes of cool horror story stuff, and we released it right on Halloween. And yeah, it was really cool. So we're doing another one this year with a bunch of different podcasts that weren't on last year's, and some of the ones that were on. So yeah, it's going to be cool. We got some big names going to be a part of it.
Yeah, I've got my story ready. I'm recording it this week. It's actually out of my hometown, and it was actually on TV.
Oh, really? Cool.
I think it was what was it? That Discovery ID. They do some ghost stuff. I believe. You're just gonna have to wait. It's really good. I'm trying to get in touch with the actual people because they're still close to me. Well, not personally, but I know they're in the area. But I've got enough on the story to get a nice little story for you, for your listeners.
Can't wait.
So, yeah. So, guys. That's Jerry Pauley. Amazing guy, big heart. Love you, Jerry. Love your wife, Tracy. Tell her I said hi, and thank you for everything you guys do.
Absolutely. Love you guys, too.
Thanks again, Jerry, coming on to the show. It was great having you. Enjoyed hearing your personal experiences with the paranormal. Definitely have to have you come back on again. Everyone, make sure you're checking out Hillbilly Horror Stories, and also, warning, you will be offended. That show makes me laugh so hard it makes my cheeks hurt so bad. Jerry's a hell of a guy, guys. Period. Love him to death. So, we're going to go out on a song I actually produced. It's called The Night Stalker. Till next time, everyone. Stay sinful.
We are all evil in some form or another, are we not?
Yes, I am evil.
Not 100%, but I am evil. The world has been fed many lies about. doing the large one. They are a product of the times, and these are bloodthirsty times. Even psychopaths have emotions if you dig deep enough, but then again, maybe they don't. We are all evil in some form or another. Are we not? Yes, I am evil. Not 100%, but I am evil.